Hi guys, this is Atonda Batolu and welcome to the Nigerian Reader. Oh my gosh, it has been so long since I last posted a video, did a book review, and I feel ashamed actually, but in my defense, I have been very busy settling into school. Actually, semester has just ended and we've just begun um, a new semester and it's been hectic. So I've been settling, I've not had time to read. I actually stopped reading everything I was reading and just had to focus on school for a while. That said, I am happy to be back. I'm excited, and today I want to talk about. I read a book. I want to talk about a book I read. I finished on Tuesday. I've been reading it for I think 3 weeks because I was reading it. I was doing exam, so it was. I read it for like 3 weeks. But the book is The Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. Yeah, The Interpreter of Maladies by Jhumpa Lahiri. I should say that this is my second book by Lahiri. The first was The Lowland, which I read first for the first time, I think late 2015, early 2016, which and I reread it last year. Was it last year or earlier this year? I think it was earlier this year. So I reread it, and I on the first reading I didn't really enjoy it. It was a good story, but I didn't really enjoy it. But then when I reread it again earlier this year, I found it very the writing is very good, but then it wasn't. I don't know. Some things were just overdone. But anyway, The Interpreter of Maladies is Lahiri's um first book. It's a book of short stories, collection of I think 12 short stories. First published in 1999. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 short stories. First published in 1999, and it's stunning because it won the Pulitzer Prize. It won the Pulitzer Prize and also the Penn Hemingway Award. And for a first book, and not only that, a book of short stories to win the Pulitzer Prize, I think it's to win both the Pulitzer Prize and the Penn Hemingway um, award. Um, I don't know. It blew my mind. But anyway, let's get to the stories. It's a collection of 9 stories. Jhumpa Lahiri is an Indian American, Indian British, uh, um, British Indian American, whatever. Um, so she's Indian, and these books are set in, well, not necessarily set in India, but have Indian characters. So in The Interpreter of Maladies, there are 9 stories. A Temporary Matter, When Mr. Prezada Came to Dine, Interpreter of Maladies, which is how we got it titled, A Real Dom, etc. And I'm just going to give a very general um, opinion of the book. I think it's a great book. I read it, like I said, over a stretch of 3 weeks. So, I mean, it was bound to get tiring at some point. There were some stories I just I just read because I had to read, not because I was particularly interested. Um, for example, a real door one, which is the first story, is um, it's good, but I didn't exactly enjoy it because I don't know. I thought it was too long. Yeah, I think it's just that. Okay, A Real Dawn and Mrs. Sen. So those are like the two stories I didn't exactly enjoy. I read them. Okay, not I didn't enjoy it. I don't think enjoy is the right word, but they didn't excite me. I enjoyed them, especially Mrs. Sense. I enjoyed reading it, but it wasn't exciting as with the rest of the stories. For example, the first story, A Temporary Matter, which is one of my favorite stories in the collection, is the story of a couple, a young couple, Indian couple living in America, and they've just lost a child. The wife was pregnant, and then the birth was stillbirth. And it's a story about how this loss of a child brought them apart, and it was very moving, and it also it made me wonder how the loss, because it's not the first of its kind story that I'll be reading. I remember in A Little Life there was this section about Harold. A Little Life by Hania Yanagihara. This section about how Harold and his first wife, um how they grew apart was because of the loss of a son, of a child. So yeah, it made me really think about how how um how really children bind bind the marriage of of their parents. I don't know, it's still a very vague idea, sketchy idea in my mind, but yeah. Um um the second story, yeah, I should also say that this book tries to be very political in some stories. For example, when Mr. Prizada came to dine, it's not it's not exactly I think it's a very political story. When Mr. Prizada came to dine and Mrs. Sen, yes, Mrs. Sen's, yeah, I think these two stories are very political in the sense that Lahiri was very political, very obviously political, and I don't know how to put it now. She was she was trying to make a political statement. For example, Mr. Prizada came to in Mr. Prizada came to dine when Mr. Prizada came to dine. Sorry, um, she was sketching she was trying to explore the Indian Pakistani um dispute, and how there's this family in, I can't remember the family name now, in living in America, and an American university, and there's this Indian family, and then there's this Mr. Pirzada who is Pakistani, and it's set in 1970, yeah, in 1971. Um, 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 and it was a period of war in Pakistan. And yeah, the family, the Indian family, is very receptive. They actually invited this Mr. Pirzada, who is Pakistani, over and stuff. And the story is told from the point of view of the child, the little girl of the family, and how she admires Mr. Pirzada, and how she didn't have um any idea that he wasn't Indian like them. Um, So yeah, and there's this section where she refers to the man, Mr. Pirzada, as an Indian, and her father corrects her. And then I'm just going to read this bit. It made no sense to me. Mr. Pirzada and my parents spoke the same language, laughed at the same jokes, looked more or less the same. They ate pickled mangoes with their meals, ate rice every night for supper with their hands. Like my parents, Mr. Pirzada took off his shoes before entering a room, chewed fennel seeds after meals as a digestive, drank no alcohol. For dessert, dipped austere biscuits into successive cups of tea. Nevertheless, my father insisted that I understand the difference, and he led me to a map of the world taped to the wall over his desk. He seemed concerned that Mr. Pirzada might take offense if I accidentally referred to him as Indian, though I could not really imagine Mr. Pirzada being offended by much of anything. Mr. Pirzada is Bengali, but he's a Muslim, my father informed me. Therefore, he lives in East Pakistan, not India. His finger trailed across the Atlantic, through Europe, the Mediterranean, the Middle East, and finally to the sprawling orange diamond that my mother once told me resembled a woman wearing a sari with her left arm extended. Various cities had been circled with lines drawn between them to indicate my parents' travels, and the place of their birth, Calcutta, was signified by a small silver star. I had been there only once and had no memory of the trip. As you see, Lilia, it is a different country, a different color, my father said. Pakistan was yellow, not orange. I noticed that there were two distinct parts to it, one much larger than the other, separated by an expanse of Indian territory. It was as if California and Connecticut constituted a nation apart from the US. Um, so I thought it was very political in this sense because there's really no point to the whole story other than to sketch a Pakistani identity and an Indian identity, and to sort of document the war, the civil war in Pakistan in the 1970s. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It wasn't very exciting, but it was a good story. Um, it was a good story. I enjoyed it. Also, I want to talk about the interpreter. Oh my God, the interpreter of Maladies was a story that almost brought me to tears. Um, it's a sad story, and I don't know. Um, it seems to me that Lahiri is very interested in marriage, in how in the fickleness of marriage, and almost the fickleness of love, because in because you always have two characters, man and a woman, that marry very young, and along the line they find that they're having trouble living with each other. This is evident in a temporary matter. It's very evident in a temporary matter. Just a moment. It's very evident in a temporary matter. It's evident in the interpreter of Maladies, in this blessed house, which is another story I love very much. Yeah. So it's a I think it's a theme that really interests me, that I think very much about. What is love exactly, and how do you decide to spend the rest of your life with one person? Um, I think it's a big decision. I think many people don't really think about, well, at least in this part of the world where I come from, many people don't really think about it and the consequences. So yeah, for this reason, Interpreter of Maladies is a story that's the story, the title story, the story where the whole book gets its title. It's a story that made me sad because anyway. So I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it. Oh my gosh, I enjoyed it. Like I said, I didn't enjoy a real dull one. Sexy, I thought was a very cliche story because you have this Indian man who's cheating on his wife. You have with an American lady, and then this lady, I don't know, gets a eureka moment, staying with the child of another Indian woman whose husband has just left her, and she gets a eureka moment, and then decides she has to end the relationship with the married Indian man. So I thought it was a very cliche story because, and I also realized that in 1991 perhaps it wasn't all that cliche, but it seems very cliche to me. Yeah, so for this reason, now I'm going to go to the last story, which ironically is called The Third and Final Continent. I think it is the best story in this book, because it was a story I read, and I screamed in my pillow, not because there was anything sad or anything, I don't know, untoward about it, but because I love the voice. I'm very interested in voice. I'm very interested in stories told in the um first person first person style. Um because I think, I don't know, there's just something about it that just really tugs at my heart. The first person style, and the second person, the you. I write poems for example, and I think in the you, in the second person. So I write poems, and they are written in the second person, addressed to a you, and I'm very interested in that. Anyway, this story is about, it's just about um a young the third and final continent, a young man who leaves India, moves to Europe, um spend some time in Europe and then moves to America, which is the third and final continent, and meets this woman and then gets lodged in this house with this old woman called Mrs. Crofts. She's old, she's a 103 years old at the time he moves in, and I, there's something, and there's something about her that he just falls in love, even though she's mean and nasty and stuff. He just falls in love with her, and not fall in love in the romantic way, but he gets to love her, or maybe not love exactly, but I don't know that he just feels very um emotional about her. And then this man marries, moves out of the house, and stuff. It's just basically a story of his I don't want to say coming of age because he's 30, I think 31 when he moves, when at the time of the story. But it's of how he finds his way through life, if that makes sense. And but what really, it's not even so much the story that gets me, but the voice it's written in. It's very moving, and it's written from memory. So you have an old man telling the story about his 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 30s and 40s, and anyone that knows me knows how very thrilled I am by memory. And yeah, so I enjoyed it for this reason, and I really do think it's a good book. Yeah, so that's just like a summary of the whole story, of all the stories in the book.